Everyone. Hey, I just gave you a fantastic, awesome little introduction right there. And you guys on the radio didn't get to hear it because I didn't get my daggum microphone turned on. So sorry about that. But we're here. We're here and we're ready to go. We were going anyway. We just didn't turn our microphone on. If you don't, what Coach Bradley used to say is if at first you don't succeed, you're doing about average. So it's about the second or third time today that I've been pretty average and didn't get my microphone turned on, but sorry about that. But we're here. It's April the 16th. It's Tuesday, and you either got all your taxes paid or you got your extension filed, and everybody just take a big old breath, and we'll just move along and relax a little bit and realize that it's going to be okay either way. So, man, we had some crazy stuff going on today at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and it's a new season for us. We have I told you guys a couple times that I've purchased some software, some brain imaging software, some brain master neurofeedback brain mapping software to do quantitative EEGs, and we started that today, and it was we had some really interesting experiences happen in the office with that because some of our people that we started with, they've got some challenging situations, and so I am so excited about what we're going to be able to do. I've got about one more week of solid training before I can really have a show on it, but I can tell you right now that it's a game changer. It's a game changer to be able to see at a different level from a chiropractic wellness standpoint. It's a game changer to be able to see a different level and see what's going on inside someone's brain and how their brain is firing, what the different lobes are doing of the brain, and map all that out and say, hey, look, we got something for you that's a little bit different than we've had for 20 years. And I'm excited to have it. And we did some of that today, and the girls did a great job in the office getting all that stuff started. And thank you to the patients who participated and got us going in that too. So look forward to that. Look forward to talking about that with you as we go forward. Neurofeedback, if you're interested, neurofeedback, if you guys have anxiety, depression, ADHD, your kids got ADHD, any of that stuff, post-traumatic stress syndrome, if you guys are soldiers out there and you got some of that you're dealing with and you need somebody to help you out, then we've got some technology that can help you out. And it's not the same technology. It may be the same technology, but it's not the same application that you might have somewhere else. Because we're going to come at it from a strictly wellness perspective and see if we can get your brain to fire the way that it's supposed to fire. See if we can get the areas that are hyperactive to calm down. See if we can get the areas that are underactive to kind of wake up a little bit. And so that's a really big deal in the way that we all function. And so I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be, I know for a fact that it's going to be life-changing for people. So you guys if you're interested and you're out there and you need some help with that stuff, we got a place for you. So, hey, I wanted to touch on a supplement that goes along with some of the articles that I want to talk about tonight. And this is, I always talk about the adult fish oil and how important it is for the adults to take their fish oil. But I wanted to talk about this one right here, which is the DHA Junior Extra from Nordic Naturals. And this one right here is for your kids. And it's got a different ratio. We always talk about EPA and DHA, and we want the EPA to be greater than the DHA. Well, in the Nordic Naturals, I mean, they've done a good job with the kids stuff. And with the kids, they've got a 165 EPA and a 375 DHA. And that's what you want for the kids. You want to increase the amount of DHA that you're giving them. And so I like this company. I've studied this company. They do a good job with this. This is 636 milligrams of total omega-3s, 880 milligrams total of omega-3 in the liquid portion. High potency omega-3 concentration for children, supports healthy brain, eye, and nervous system development, promotes healthy cognitive function and social development, and let me see. There's a little asterisk just down here, and it's probably going to say something that this was not. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease. And we know that, right? We know that because we don't diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease. That's not what we do. We put the body in a state of optimal wellness if we can get it there, and then the body handles all the stuff. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do every single day in the office. So kids, it's super important. Kids need their DHA. They need their fish oil just like adults need their fish oil. They just need it in a little bit different ratio. And we get this from Nordic Naturals. You can get it anywhere. You can get it at Amazon, any health food store. You can get it at any grocery store, basically. That to get your kids. It's chewables. They're pearl-sized, chewable soft gels. Supports brain development. Great for ages 3 and up. And there's some different. This one is some sort of berry. I don't know what it doesn't say. I can't see on the bottle what it is. But on the website that I'm reading off of, they've got 2 different berry punch, I believe is what it's called. So they taste good, they're good for you, and they're good stuff. And let me just say this right quick, because I got this question asked me yesterday during one of our nutritional programs, or one of our nutritional consultations, because the lady was asking me about the mercury in fish. And look, that is an issue that we have to deal with. So we try to get products that are good and tested. And Nordic Naturals fish, I'll read it right off their website. Nordic Naturals fish oil products are made using fresh, wild-caught fish to deliver re-esterified triglyceride form and triglyceride form omega-3 for better absorption. Our products are non-GMO and third-party tested, meeting or exceeding the strictest international standards for purity and freshness. They have a certificate of analysis, are also available for any product. Nordic Natural Fish Oils are Friends of the Sea certified. And you can check your products, test results. So I can go right online. I can get right off the bottle right here, and it's got a lot number. And so I'll just put the lot number in 241417, and I can view this analysis right here of what it is, and if it checks or it doesn't check. It gets into environmental toxins, and does it check out? Yes. It gets into heavy metals. Yes. So mercury is less than 0.001 parts per million, and it's tested and it's checked. And so that's why I like Nordic Naturals. I've liked them for years. I use the liquid Nordic Naturals at the house when I want to get volume, and they do a great job with that. So you can get their certificate. That's the only thing I can say. If someone asks me the question, hey, what about the mercury in the fish? Well, I know that the companies that provide us the fish oil that we use are trying their hardest to make sure that they purify that and get as much of that stuff out of the fish as they can. And I don't know what we do if we pollute the world to the point where we can't eat any fish, because that would be tragic for our health. We'd have to take us another couple of 100 years to adapt to that, I imagine, or 1,000, I don't know. But it's super important. I mean, it's really, really important. So just want you to know about it. DHA Junior Extra for the kiddos. Real quickly, a couple of comments, just kind of a commentary, which I guess actually the majority of this show is commentary, so it doesn't really make it all that different. But I had a conversation with one of my guys today, and he's not doing real great, and he's going to have some tests run. And he mentions to me that he's got this pain in his leg, and he's been keeping it at bay with his adjustments and with ibuprofen. And he went into the doc, and the doc tells him, don't, or the whoever it was, I don't even know who it was, the nurses or the PA or whoever it was, told him, don't take any more ibuprofen. You can take acetaminophen, but don't take ibuprofen. You can take Tylenol, but don't take ibuprofen. And he said, so I've been taking Tylenol, and I'm like, one of the things you got to watch out for, and I don't really know, I can't tell. Well, I have an assumption that the people that work in the healthcare field, what is typically called the healthcare field, which we call the sick care field, the people that work in the hospitals and the doctor's offices and all that sort of thing, I really don't know, and I haven't talked to a lot of them. And maybe it's philosophical, but I really don't know how much they study acetaminophen and the dangers of that stuff, and how important it is to make sure that that you're functioning properly. I'm not exactly sure that they even care, or they even know, or they even study it. And so there's a lot of articles out there that talk about, and I had one pulled up right here because I want to talk about some fish oil tonight. I mean, not fish oil, some. I want to talk about some olive oil tonight, but there, it was an article about glutathione, and I guess I must have closed it out. But glutathione is super important, and glutathione protects mitochondria. And if you don't understand that, then maybe you should listen to this show, because glutathione protects mitochondria. And mitochondria is the power plant of the cell. And if you lose that mitochondria, then you got a problem. So the better glutathione you have, the better mitochondria that you have. And one of the things that acetaminophen does is it depletes glutathione. And that's not good. And so if you're trying to battle to stay alive, and you're trying to battle to stay healthy as you can, you want to make sure that you've got enough glutathione. That's what N-acetylcysteine is a precursor to glutathione. That's what undenatured whey protein is. That's what pomegranate juice is. All of those things have been shown to increase glutathione, and increased glutathione has been shown to be protective of mitochondria. And so when you have something like that, and you've got pain in your leg, and you say, well, we can't take ibuprofen anymore. Now you got to take, which ibuprofen is the same thing. Don't kid yourself on that deal. But they say, well, now you take your acetaminophen. Like, I really think that making a recommendation for someone to take acetaminophen should be almost considered a borderline malpractice. I mean, I really do. I think that we should have an open discussion amongst the whole world. Everybody step up, all the big time docs, everybody that's in nutrition, everybody that knows something, all your hospital administrators, everybody step to the table and say, hey, look, is this acetaminophen dangerous to the human body? Yes. Is it acetaminophen decreases glutathione? Yes. It makes no sense whatsoever to me that anybody that's trying to fight for their life and trying to be healthy and trying to make their cells function the way that they're supposed to, especially lung problems. There are articles, there's research that says that acetaminophen, because you break down the acetaminophen in the liver, and the liver uses glutathione as the detoxifying agent. And if you don't have enough glutathione once you use up all your glutathione in your liver, then your body sends out a signal and to other parts of the body to send your glutathione to your liver. And one of the things that it does is it depletes it from the lung. And the lung cell, we've talked about this lots of times, the lung cell is one cell layer thick. And when you get down into those alveolar sacs and you try to get that oxygen exchange, you got one cell right there between you and the earth. There's one cell. Take a deep breath. That oxygen went into your lungs, and it went deep into those air sacs, And if that oxygen is going to be brought into your body, it's going to go through one cell. Now blow on your hand. Like, did you get oxygen exchanged into your blood when you blew on your hand? No. Why? Because your hand has, your skin is multiple cell layers thick. I don't actually even know. That'd be a great question to ask right now. I'll just ask it. How many cell layers is skin? I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I'm not talking about epidermis and dermis and all that sort of thing. I might have to look that up. 20 to 30 cell layers. Let's see. The stratum lucidum is 2 to 3 cell layers present in thicker skin found in the palms and the soles. Is a thin layer of clear layer consisting of something else, which is transformation of keratohyaline. The stratum cornea, 20 to 30 cell layers, is the uppermost layer made of keratin and horny scales. So we've got that. There's at least 33 right there, cell layers thick. Well, inside the lung, it's one. And so when you got to get that oxygen exchange, you got to get some marines on that wall, and the marines that are on that wall is the glutathione, and the glutathione is going to get sucked off that wall if you're going to deplete it in your liver. I just don't think it makes any sense. So what do? So you got to have an alternative, right? If you're going to spout off at the mouth, you got to have an alternative, and you got to say, hey, listen, all right, what I'm trying to say to you is that if I say you shouldn't take acetaminophen, what are you going to give me that's going to help me, that's going to balance it out? And so what are we going to do? We're going to go with fish oil and turmeric. And so that's what I did. I just sent him the fish oil and the turmeric. And we've got turmeric in the office. I've got it in several different forms and all that sort of thing. But one of the places we get it the most at the grocery store or Sprouts or Nature's Tonic or wherever we get it it's a company, and it's from GAIA Herbs. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's the way it's spelled. GAIA Herbs. It's called Turmeric Supreme Extra Strength. It is vegan liquid phytocaps herbal supplements, and it's extra strength. And if you'll double up your turmeric and add your fish oil to it, it's pretty powerful anti-inflammatory. I know that personally, and from information that I have at my house, that you can get quite an anti-inflammatory boost from that. So if you need something as an alternative to decrease your inflammation, that's where you could go. Turmeric and fish oil, and I mentioned that to my guy today. So maybe he'll start talking with that. And fish oil is just going to help your glutathione increase. Fish oil helps your glutathione, and turmeric is not going to be toxic to the body at that level, and so you'll get an anti-inflammatory response to the whole thing. And it's not, so you're not just doing one thing, you're doing two things. When you do healthy things instead of doing toxic things, then because when you do healthy things, you're actually decreasing your inflammation, and at the same time, you're not toxifying yourself. So it's a double whammy when you do healthy stuff. When you do the sick care stuff, you're not solving your inflammation problem. Let me break that down for you. I wasn't going to get there until afterwards because I am going to talk about olive oil tonight. But let me share this with you again, because I want you to be able to see it and really understand it. And we've gone over it before. It's one of my favorite slides, and it's not anything that's new. If I can find it, there it is. But hang on one second. Let me get this straightened out. I need an editor. I need an assistant doing all this. But yeah. So when we eat When we eat corn, cottonseed, sunflower, safflower, peanuts, soy, canola, anything that is high in omega-6 fatty acids, when we eat high omega-6 fatty acid diets, our body turns, with the help of this little delta-6 desaturase, it turns this omega-6 fatty acid into this long DHGLA. It's a different kind of acid. And when that happens, you kick it over into this anti-inflammatory prostaglandin. And I'm not going to get too complicated with it, especially you guys on the radio. But you guys that are watching this right here, my point is this. When you eat high omega-6 fatty acids, then you're going to get, if you activate it with insulin, you're going to get delta-5 desaturase instead of delta-6 desaturase, and you're going to get arachidonic acid. So you're going to have an increase of arachidonic acid, and your body is going to use COX enzymes to kick that down to prostaglandin, which is going to give you inflammation. That's the pathway. That's the physiological pathway of carrying an omega-6 fatty acid down to inflammation. So what is the problem? Why are you taking the acetaminophen and the ibuprofen in the first place? You're taking that because your joints hurt, because you've got pain, and one of the hallmarks of pain is inflammation. Those two things almost walk hand in hand together. So if you can decrease your inflammation, you got a chance to decrease your pain, and those two things they just map. So what is acetaminophen? They're all COX inhibitors, right? That's what they are. Is they're COX inhibitors. That's how you get all that stuff. Is with blocking the COX enzyme. So just look at the chemistry of this process. Just think about the chemistry. If I have a large bucket of omega-6s, and I'm going to turn that into arachidonic acid, and I'm going to turn arachidonic acid into inflammation. The pharmaceutical industry is not going to talk to you about decreasing your omega-6 fatty acids. They're not. There's no money in it. There's no money in it at all. You don't get paid to tell somebody hey, be careful about all your omega-6 fatty acids you're eating. I just told you, and I don't think anybody's going to send me $1. I don't think I'll be surprised if I get. I'll check the mail here for the next few weeks, and I'll see if anybody sends me $1 for sharing that piece of information with them. Right? That's not how you make money. And why would you go into a pharmaceutical company? Why would you even own a pharmaceutical company if your goal wasn't to make money? If your goal is to help people, there's a lot of things we could do to help them, right? So we're not in the pharmaceutical world. They're not even going to address the top half of this. They're just going to say, hey, how can we block arachidonic acid to prostaglandins? Well, that's what they'll do. And they'll block your COX enzymes. But what happens when they block the COX enzymes? Well, your body's got all those omega-6s, and it's got all this arachidonic acid. And so what's it going to do? It's going to bring in the LOX enzymes, and you're going to get leukotriene B4, which is inflammatory. You got to do something with all that stuff. It's like if someone shows up to the office and they bring me 500 boxes of styrofoam cups. What am I going to do? I got to do something with them. Like they just gave them to me. I got to do something. I got to put them somewhere. That's the same thing your body's going to do. Your body, if it's overblown with corn and soy and peanut butter and all the rest of that stuff that's high omega-6s, then what you'll end up with is you'll have to do something with all that arachidonic acid, because I don't know anybody that eats that stuff without insulin. You're just going to eat, what are you going to eat it with? You're going to eat peanut butter on what? Steak? How many people put peanut butter on steak? I never heard of it. I never heard of it in my whole life. I've heard of peanut butter and jelly. I've heard of peanut butter on toast. I've had of peanut butter and crackers. I've heard of peanut butter on an apple. What are those things going to cause? They're going to cause an insulin spike. If you eat your peanut butter on your cracker, now if you want to eat your peanut butter on your steak, you're not going to get. It's all going to go to the prostaglandin that's anti-inflammatory because you're not going to have any insulin released. So if you want to try that, you probably could report back. I bet you we just created a new recipe right there. I bet you, I bet you we just created a new recipe, and if we did, we should copyright that. You guys that are cooks or chefs or something out there, maybe y'all could copyright that, and we could have something that we could share. But I don't think we're going to put peanut butter on our steak. I think we're probably going to put it on something that's going to cause, or we're going to eat it with jelly, and we're going to cause ourselves to be inflamed. So I promise, when we get back after this break, we are going to talk about olive oil. I've been wanting to talk about it all night, just haven't gotten to it. And it'll tie right back into this anti-inflammatory part. So you guys stick around, and we'll talk about olive oil when we get back. Yeah, so that's the breakdown of omega 6s that turns itself into inflammation. And if you're having an inflammatory problem, like this guy's having, he's having an inflammatory problem, and then one of the things is not good for him is to stay on an inflammatory diet. And so, but we can knock down that inflammation by fish oil. Let me show you to you one more time, because it's right here. There's a way it blocks it. This is what happens when you eat omega-3 fatty acids, especially in fish, EPA and DHA. Then it's been shown to beat pain management 88% of the time. It's anti-inflammatory, and it blocks it right here. EPA balances. It inhibits both the LOX enzymes and the COX enzymes. It balances your 6:3 ratio and decreases your inflammation. And I didn't invent any of this stuff. This is just the chemistry that goes along with how you can decrease your inflammation. So if you want a better option, and you want to try to decrease your inflammation naturally without causing some sort of toxicity in your body, that would seem to me like that's a double whammy right there. Like you're getting both sides of it. Not only are you doing something good for yourself, but you're not doing something bad for yourself. So, yeah. Hey, if you guys are watching this, you're watching it later, and you got any questions you want to send it to us. You can text us at 806-794-0400, or you can send us a message on the chat line, or make a comment, and I'll always try to get back. I'll try to get back to you and answer you. I know some of you send me messages, and I get that information, try to get it all back to you. So let me get us back on the radio here. Okay, everybody, we're back. Let's talk about while we're talking about this, let's talk about fish oil, not fish oil, olive oil, just a little bit. And I saw a couple of interesting articles that I thought I would share with you guys. I thought I'd share that with you about different forms or why olive oil is good for you. So the one that I saw that jumped out at me, it was consumption of olive oil and risk of total and cause-specific mortality among U.S. adults. And this comes from the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, January 18th, 2022, volume 79, number 2, pages 101 to 112. So this is from a bunch of folks from Harvard School of Public Health, Harvard Medical School, and the University of Navarra, Pamplona, Spain. And so these guys got together. The purpose of this study was to evaluate whether olive oil intake is associated with total and cause-specific mortality in 2 prospective cohorts of U.S. men and women. The study followed 60,000 people, 60,582 women, and 31,801 men. So we got a total of 92,000 people. And they followed them for 28 years. And this article cites 33 references. This is the first large prospective study to examine the association between total olive oil consumption and cause-specific mortality in the U.S. population. Strength of our study includes a large sample size, long-term and high rates of follow-up, detailed and repeated measurements of diet and lifestyle, and numerous sensitivity analysis that supports the robustness of our results. So it's pretty solid research, I think, and it comes to us from the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. 1 tablespoon is equivalent to 13.5 grams of olive oil. Highest consumption of olive oil was defined as greater than half a tablespoon per day or greater than 7 grams per day. So, we try to get, in the fish oil world, we try to get you at 3 grams per day, and they're talking about the highest consumption. So this study is the first to estimate the impact of replacing specific types of fat with olive oil in relation to total and cause-specific mortality. Olive oil is high in monounsaturated fatty acids, especially oleic acid, and other minor components, including vitamin E and polyphenols, contributing to its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. The mean consumption of olive oil in the United States population was 10 grams per day, whereas in Mediterranean populations, the mean intake was 40 grams per day. So remember when we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the blue zones and the Mediterranean places, those places are always high on that list. And the Mediterranean diet, obviously, is high on that list. And so what we're talking about is places that have 4 times the consumption of what we typically have in the United States. Previous studies have reported that greater olive oil consumption is associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. An inverse association between olive oil consumption and risk of cardiovascular disease has been well established in large prospective cohort studies and large clinical trials. Covariants included in this analysis were, and they go through a whole list of them. I mean, they look at alcohol intake, aspirin use, ethnicity, family history of diabetes, hypercholesterolemia, intake of fruits and vegetables and nuts, medications, multivitamins use. There's a whole bunch. Grain consumption, type 2 diabetes, arachidonic acid intake, body mass index, family history of cancer, hypertension, marital status, menopause status, physical activity. There's a list. There's a bunch of it. Eating habits based on 11 foods and nutrients that are predictive of chronic disease include, so let me say that again. Based on 11 foods and nutrients that are predictive of chronic disease risk include fruit, vegetables, nuts, and legumes, red and processed meat, whole grains, sodium, trans fat, and long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. The findings: higher olive oil intake was associated with lower risk of total and cause-specific mortality. Replacing 10 grams a day of margarine, butter, mayonnaise, and dairy fat with, let me say it again, replacing 10 grams per day of margarine, butter, mayonnaise, and dairy fat with the equivalent amount of olive oil was associated with an 8% to 34% lower risk of total and cause-specific mortality. Replacing margarine, butter, mayonnaise, and dairy fat with olive oil was associated with lower risk of mortality. Age-adjusted and multivariable adjusted models showed a consistent, significant inverse association between olive oil intake and total and cause-specific mortality. Specific inverse associations for total mortality and cause-specific mortality were also observed for each 5 additional gram increase in olive oil intake. So if you kept going up, you even did better. Evidence is occurring in support of the hypothesis that olive oil, particularly the virgin variety, rich in bioactive polyphenols, also reduces the underlying pathology of Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases. We estimate that substituting 10 grams a day of other fats, including margarine, butter, mayonnaise, and dairy fat, with olive oil was associated with the reductions in the risk of all these mortalities. So, olive oil also exerts anti-inflammatory and anti-atherogenic effects, and it may help reduce oxidative stress and improve endothelial function of your blood vessels, right? Olive oil can improve the lipid profile, inflammatory biomarkers, insulin sensitivity, glycemic control, and decrease blood pressure. Higher olive oil intake was associated with lower levels of inflammatory biomarkers and a better lipid profile. I will be willing to bet you that my guy that has inflammation, that's having the pain, that he can't take the ibuprofen, I'll be willing to bet you that they did not tell him when they told him he could take acetaminophen instead of ibuprofen. I will be willing to bet you that they didn't mention olive oil. Just an aside right there. In this study, higher olive oil intake was associated with a 17% lower risk of cancer mortality, an 18% lower risk of respiratory disease mortality, a 19% lower risk of cardiovascular disease mortality, and a 29% lower risk of neurodegenerative disease mortality. It's almost 30% decrease in brain degeneration mortality. Diseases that cause death that have to do with your brain deteriorating, right? And what they're saying is, hey, maybe some of those other things that you could substitute it for when you're cooking with it. So olive oil is high in bioactive compounds and has been associated with lower risk of total and cause-specific mortality. Potential mechanisms of these associations include olive oil being less susceptible to oxidation. It has a higher temperature before it gets bad, having anti-inflammatory and anti-atherogenic properties, and improving oxidative stress, the free radical stuff, right? Endothelial function, lipid profile, insulin sensitivity, and blood pressure. We found that greater consumption of olive oil was associated with lower risk of total. I keep saying that same thing. I get it. These results support dietary recommendations to increase the intake of olive oil to improve overall health and longevity. And so Dr. Murphy, who supplies me with these articles, he said, hey, there's an article review, ibuprofen-like activity in extra virgin olive oil, enzymes in inflammation pathways. So I went and I looked up that one for you, and because that goes along with what we're talking about, and that goes along with our omega-6 to arachidonic acid to prostaglandin pathway that we've been talking about. So this is called phytochemistry, ibuprofen-like activity in extra virgin olive oil, enzymes in an inflammation pathway that are inhibited by oleocanthal, a component of olive oil. This came from Nature, September 1st, 2005, pages 45 and 46. One of the cool things about Dr. Murphy is he always cites those things that he's already done, or a lot of times he will. So when he sees an article, that first article is in 2022. The second article goes all the way back to 2005. He says, I talked about that in 2005. That's why I love that guy, because he taught me this stuff way before everybody else did. He taught me this stuff way before you could get it on Instagram. He was teaching me this stuff way before it was popular in all the other realms. I'm like, yep, take your fish oil. It's good stuff. I didn't make it up. It's good stuff. So let's talk about this one. Newly pressed extra virgin olive oil contains, I think that's called oleocanthal. That's why I'm going to say it. A compound whose pungency induces a strong stinging sensation in the throat, not unlike that caused by solutions of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug ibuprofen. We show here that this similar perception seems to be an indicator of a shared pharmacological activity, with oleocanthal acting as a natural anti-inflammatory compound that has a potency and profile strikingly similar to that of ibuprofen. Although structurally dissimilar, both of these molecules inhibit the same COX enzyme pathway in the prostaglandin biosynthesis pathway. It both of these molecules inhibit the same, and it's COX enzyme in the prostaglandin biosynthesis pathway. And that's what I was just showing you. I was showing you that when you take omega-6s, you carry them down to the DHGLA, you carry them down to the arachidonic acid, you carry them down through with the COX enzymes to the prostaglandins. And that's the one that gives you the inflammation. These authors also note the agent in extra virgin olive oil responsible for throat irritation is thought to be oleocanthal, with oleocanthal probably, for olive, canth for stinging, and al for aldehydes. These authors also isolated oleocanthal from different premium olive oils and measured its intensity as throat irritant. They found that irritation intensity was positively correlated with the amount of this oleocanthal concentrations. They tested whether this might mimic the pharmacological effects of ibuprofen, a potent modulator of inflammation and anesthesia. Not anesthesia. Of inflammation. Ibuprofen is an inhibitor of the COX enzyme COX-1 and COX-2, which catalyzes steps in the biochemical inflammation pathways derived from arachidonic acid. That's what I was just saying. We found that, like ibuprofen, this part of olive oil can dose-dependent inhibit the COX-1 and COX-2 activities. Our findings raise the possibility that long-term consumption of this olive oil may help to protect against some diseases by virtue of its ibuprofen-like COX inhibiting activity. What's the difference? What's the difference between the olive oil and the ibuprofen? The olive oil is natural, comes from the olive, right? That's natural. So the ibuprofen is not. It comes from the lab. And your ibuprofen is horrible for your kidneys. Just ask anybody that's in the kidney world. They'll tell you ibuprofen is horrible for your kidneys. Acetaminophen is horrible for your liver. Fish oil is not horrible for either one of them, and neither is olive oil. It's not horrible for either one of them. And that's why the olive oil has a higher temperature before it oxidizes. That's why they keep it in a brown bottle. When you get it in the grocery store, there's some good things for you. If 50 grams of extra virgin olive oil containing up to 200 grams per milliliter of oleocanthal is ingested per day, of which 60 to 90% is absorbed, then this corresponds to an intake of up to 9 milligrams of this per day. This dose is relatively low, corresponding to about 10% of the ibuprofen dosage recommended for an adult pain relief, but it is known that the regular low doses of aspirin, another COX inhibitor, confer cardiovascular health benefits. If it's good for your liver and it's good for your heart and it's good for your kidneys and it's good for your stomach, then okay, fine. But if it's not, then no. Just because it makes your heart feel better, but it kills your liver or your kidneys, doesn't make any sense, right? A Mediterranean diet, which is rich in olive oil, confers various health benefits, including a reduction of the risk of developing some cancer, of platelet aggregation in the blood, so you don't get clots, and reduced incidence of Alzheimer's disease. Our discovery of COX inhibitory activity in a component of olive oil offers a possible mechanistic explanation for this link. And this is just key points that Dr. Murphy points out in this article. Newly pressed extra virgin olive oil contains this chemical that we've been talking about. Ibuprofen is an inhibitor of the COX-1 and 2 pathways, and so is this same chemical that we've been talking about in the olive oil. So that goes back to how those two things, how they fit together. And so I just thought I would piggyback off of that, and I would take some a moment just to talk about anti-inflammatory effects of low arachidonic acid diet and fish oil in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. So what does it matter? Like if you say, hey, what are you talking about? Can I decrease my inflammation if I decrease my arachidonic acid? Yes. And you may never have heard of arachidonic acid other than we have mentioned it on the show before. But yes, you can decrease it right here. And this one, this was from Rheumatol International, 2003, volume 23, pages 27 through 36. And this a whole list of guys that got together. Patients with rheumatoid arthritis improve on a vegetarian diet or supplementation with fish oil. We investigated the effects of both dietary measures alone and in combination on inflammation, fatty acid composition of erythrocyte lipids, eicosanoids, and cytokine biosynthesis in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. 68 patients with definitive rheumatoid arthritis were matched into two groups of 34 subjects each. One group was observed for 8 months on a normal Western diet and the other on an anti-inflammatory diet, providing an arachidonic acid intake of less than 90 milligrams per day. Patients in both groups were allocated to receive placebo or fish oil capsules for 3 months in a double-blind crossover study with a 2-month washout period between treatments. Results. In the anti-inflammatory diet patients, as compared to the Western diet patients, fish oil led to a significant reduction in the number of tender and swollen joints. Conclusion. A diet low in arachidonic acid ameliorates clinical signs of inflammation in patients with rheumatoid arthritis and augments the beneficial effects of fish oil supplementation. The authors also note arachidonic acid present in cell phospholipids is the precursor of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids, and supplementation with arachidonic acid results in stimulation of prostaglandin formation. Western diets are high in arachidonic acid, which derives exclusively from nutrients of animal origins. N3 fatty acids from fish oil inhibits cytokine and eicosanoid formation by competing with omega-6 fatty acids for incorporation in cell phospholipids and for the binding sites of COX and LOX enzymes. What that means right there is that the omega-3s battle your omega-6s in your cell wall. And your cell wall is how you get glutathione into the cell. And so, and what this is saying, this is Western diet and are high in arachidonic acid, which derives exclusively from nutrients of animal origin. But feed those animals grass and they become a way more omega-3 animal than an omega-6 animal. So the Western diet is because where does the omega-6 come from? The omega-6 comes from the corn, the cottonseed, and the soy. Those things that we feed cows to fatten them up. So when we eat steak that we buy from the grocery store that's not grass-fed, then we'll end up with a higher omega-6 concentration. And you know, every time I have this conversation with a patient live in the office, or you know, I hear people talk about this, they'll just get into this big argument about, man, well, it tastes so much better. The omega-6 tastes so much better than the omega-3, and it's not that much bad for you, and all that sort of thing. And it's like, look, I learned a long time ago, I'm not going to argue with people about food. Like, okay, do it your way. But that goes back to that thing that we talked about last night. When in Luke, when we were talking about the older brother who was fussy because his younger brother was home and he got the fattened calf and the party thrown for him and all the stuff, right? And he said, well, if you'd asked me, I wouldn't have done it that way. And remember that, if you didn't see that last night, that was an interesting little moment, because it's like, we didn't ask you. That's not the way it works. And what I'm talking about with this 6:3 ratio, I'm not an anti-cow person, and I'm definitely not an anti-rancher person. I got ranchers in my family. Like they're a huge part of my family, have been a huge part of my family my whole entire life. And I'm not an I mean I live in West Texas, and I've got um, patients from all over this place, and I'm not coming at anybody. I'm just trying to talk about health. And I think I qualify just a little bit to talk about health, especially when I'm talking to people that are ranching people. Because look, dadgummit, there's a difference. There's a difference between an omega-6 cow and omega-3 cow. There's a difference. And there's a difference in the omega-6 content of your phospholipid bilayer in your cell wall, and it competes with your omega-3s. And can't we fix that problem? If we really understood that problem, can't we fix that problem? And I've got patients. I mean, I got people that I follow. That the Green Oak Pastures guy, no, White Oak Pastures, with Regenerative Agricultural Podcast, the accumulation benefits of regeneration, with Will Harris. Will Harris was in the industry for a long time. He's an old rancher. Like he's an old guy that used to do it that way, and then he said, you know what? And he's in Alabama, I believe that's where that's at. And he said, hey, we shouldn't do it that way anymore. It's not good for us to do it that way. You can find him, White Oak Pastures, on Instagram if you follow Instagram, or you can Google them or whatever. But what I'm saying is that that man said, hey, look, I did it this way for a long time. I was in this industry. I saw what we were doing to our planet. I saw what we were doing to the people. And now we've switched it. And now we have regenerative farming. It's saving our land, and it's creating a better animal, and it's creating less disease by eating that animal. And I think that's a worthy cause to have to talk about. And I could pull up, I'm trying to talk about olive oil, right? And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is I'm talking about olive oil, and I'm talking about arachidonic acid, and I'm talking about decreasing your arachidonic acid to decrease your inflammation. And the article right here is saying that omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil inhibits cytokines and eicosanoid formation by competing with omega-6 fatty acids for incorporation in the cell phospholipid and for the binding sites of COX and LOX. If you don't have those binding sites for COX and LOX, then you're not going to take arachidonic acid and turn it into a prostaglandin that causes inflammation. Patients with RA improve on a vegetarian diet. Patients with RA also improve on a omega-6-3 ratio diet, and they also improve when you get your omega-3s up and your omega-6s down. That's what they're saying. It doesn't have to just be vegetarian. Quit feeding them corn-fed animals. Several studies have found modest but consistent improvement in clinical symptoms and laboratory findings in RA patients who are given fish oil. The diet group, in this diet group, to reduce arachidonic acid intake to less than 90 milligrams per day, meat intake was limited to a maximum of 2 servings per week. Yeah, and you can also get yourself some grass-fed animals. So I know that was kind of all over the place, but olive oil is good for you. And decreasing your arachidonic acid is good for you. And turmeric and fish oil will help you with your inflammation and not be toxic to your body. So that's basically the gist of the show. I hope it was worth listening to. I hope somebody out there listened to it. And yeah, so we're going to be back tomorrow night. That's the end of the show. We'll be back tomorrow night right here at 6:00 live. So hope you guys will join us. And otherwise, if you need me, holler at me, and you guys stay safe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.